They are Obama's favorite weapon. Unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones.
Is war becoming like a video game?
It's nothing like a video game.
What's next for these robots of the battlefield? We're in Alamogordo, New Mexico. The US Air Force have invited the media to Holloman Air Force Base. The main attraction is the Reaper, an unmanned aerial vehicle.
I don't know where to go to actually get the shot of the Reaper taking off, but we can provide extra B-roll probably tomorrow.
First, we meet the squadron commander.
Why have drones, or RPAs as you call them, become so popular with the US Air Force? Do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, they work. They are a force multiplier and they save lives. You know, I really believe that the remotely piloted aircraft, I like to call them remotely piloted aircraft, not drones, because we are actually controlling them. But the remotely piloted aircraft save lives. This is an MQ-9. This is a Reaper.
What is it used for?
It's used primarily for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and it does have a strike role too.
What is the payload?
The payload is what you see on this airplane. You've got, on each side you can carry 2 Hellfires, you can carry a bomb, and on the other side you put another bomb, a 500-pound class bomb, and the 2 Hellfires. So yeah. You got 4 missiles and 2 GBU-12s, bombs on each airplane.
How long can this plane stay in the air?
This airplane can stay in the air probably about 16 hours.
And that's a big advantage compared to an F-16 or a fighter plane.
It is. That's one of the advantages this one has, is that it's got persistence. And persistence is always over the top of somebody if they are needing help from above.
You don't have to fly back to base to refuel. You can just stay for
We can
16.
stay for a long place for a long times, yes.
Like the Colonel said, its primary role is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So to accomplish that, we do have the primary payload are the cameras, both day TV and night vision camera.
Do you have a live video link from the aircraft back to base?
Yes, sir.
And how good is that quality? You can really see pretty good what's happening on the ground?
Yes, sir. It's very good quality.
Can you give me your name and rank?
No, sir. My name is Major TREY.
And your last name?
Not able to divulge that.
This is an Air Force policy that we're following.
Yeah.
So all we're doing is following that policy that's been set in place to protect our pilots and sensor operators due to much of the operational security risks that they may face in their line of work. To your right is McDonald's. Anything? Nothing? It's early.
The Americans claim the drones are vital in combating terrorism. They are much cheaper and easier. You can do some serious damage with them. And that's the way they want to suppress Al-Qaeda. This is Anwar al-Awlaki. The CIA say he was the leader of Al-Qaeda in Yemen. Yemen and America are not at war, but the US sent a drone after al-Awlaki and 3 fellow passengers anyway.
All of them were killed without trial or without a public presentation of evidence against them. They were killed when missiles were fired from drones that were operated by the CIA or the US military.
ACLU, a civil rights organization in New York, is currently suing the state for summary executions carried out with drones.
Well, I think there is certainly a concern that the United States is setting a precedent in its use of drones that it would not be happy with other countries using in the same way. You're absolutely right that the technology of drones is not particularly complicated at its base, and there are dozens of nations now that are developing or already have drone technology. And the United States now claims the ability to use these drones to kill people all over the world. I suspect that the United States will not be so happy if a country like Russia or China or Iran claims the same authority and starts going after United States citizens or others. It's really a dangerous precedent.
The unmanned aerial vehicles are controlled from these containers in America. The pilots don't go into the war zone at all. They drive to the base in the morning, kill some Al-Qaeda or Taliban fighters, and go home for dinner at the end of the day.
It is a unique capability to be able to operate stateside and then go home to your family. It's kind of weird though, because for half of your day you're operating and performing missions, and then you go home to be your family. And for some folks that can be a challenge, for some of the younger guys, but the Air Force does a very good job. We have a lot of resources, chaplains, medical personnel, for any issues they may see, they are well taken care of.
But are drones precision weapons, or do they cause civilian casualties?
I want to make sure that people understand actually drones have not caused a huge number of civilian casualties. For the most part, they have been very precise, precision strikes against Al-Qaeda and their affiliates. And we are very careful in terms of how it's been applied. So I think that there's this perception somehow that we're just sending in a whole bunch of strikes willy-nilly. This is a targeted, focused effort at people who are on a list of active terrorists and so on.
Mistakes like these, when an American chopper pilot shot Iraqi civilians, should now occur less frequently.
Clear.
Drones are said to be more precise,
Clear.
but that turns out to be not entirely true.
Coming around clear. Roger.
Shit happens, zeggen ze altijd in war. Hè?
Shit happens. That's what they say in war. Murphy's Law. Things go wrong. And that goes for UAVs as well as aircraft. You think you've cornered an Al-Qaeda fighter on a farm, so you send a rocket out there to kill him. When it's about to hit, whether from a manned or an unmanned aircraft, his wife comes out the door. What do you do? The scenarios for such actions are unchanged. A drone might be a few inches more precise, but the consequences are the same.
So you have two people operating the aircraft?
That's right. The pilot is flying the airplane, the pilot in command is in charge, and then the sensor operator is operating the targeting pod under the direction of the pilot. You need two to maximize the capabilities of the aircraft. So as you can see, the sensor operator is actively involved in moving that targeting pod around, finding the blue forces, the convoy, etc. It's pretty much a full-time job, and so that allows the pilot to focus on not just maneuvering the aircraft to produce optimal imagery, but also to be in charge of the overall tactical scenario, how you're going to employ the weapon system.
What is this joystick used for?
That's the control stick. You use it. It's not a joystick. It's the control stick for the aircraft.
It's just a big computer game. It's funny how these pilots, although they are desk pilots, still wear flight suits to make them look like real pilots.
Is war becoming like a video game?
It's nothing like a video game. And the reason it's not like a video game is because this is connected to a real airplane flying through the real air. These two crew members are acutely aware of that, right? And in fact, because they have an egocentric perspective, they actually start to feel like they're on board the aircraft after a bit of time, right?
In a way, the Americans already reached the turning point in 2009 and 2010. They trained more screen pilots than pilots physically inside an aircraft. And they purchased more unmanned planes than manned ones, which is not surprising, since they are much cheaper.
Dus eigenlijk geen science fiction meer, het is de realiteit van vandaag.
It's everyday reality.
This is the step desk, is what we call it, and the operations supervisor is in charge of all of the missions that go on.
Was that a civilian car on the road?
It is a civilian car here in New Mexico.
So you're training with locking on civilian cars?
We're able to track them. We do not simulate or actually engage those vehicles. It's just simply to train them to be able to follow a moving target.
With or without their permission?
They do not know that we can see them, but we are just following the vehicle with the camera.
You were in Afghanistan in 2008. What happened?
I was invited to an interview by a Taliban commander, and I went to the interview with 2 Afghan colleagues. Instead of interviewing us, he kidnapped us and took us into the tribal areas of Pakistan and held us prisoner there for 7 months.
So you were a hostage?
Yeah, we were held in an area called North Waziristan. It's part of the tribal areas in Pakistan. They train suicide bombers there. There are foreign militants, and also there are American drones sort of circling overhead in the sky all the time. It was amazing to be on the other side of a drone strike. Drones sort of circled all the time overhead in the tribal areas of Pakistan. These drone strikes happen maybe once every 10 days or 2 weeks, and the militants would be angry when they would occur. It was hard for me to tell what was happening, but it did seem like militants were being killed in attacks along with some civilians. The closest missile strike was we had moved to a small town in South Waziristan, and there was a car driving next to the house where we were being held, and a missile strike hit the car, and we were so close that pieces of metal, pieces of shrapnel from the missile actually landed in the courtyard of the house where we were being held. I was afraid civilians had been killed. I was very afraid I would be killed in revenge for the attack. It turned out that 7 foreigners and Pakistani militants were in the car, all men, and they had been killed. One of the things the Obama administration has tried to do is have a light footprint that, compared to a Bush-style large ground invasion with 100,000 troops in Afghanistan or Iraq, the Obama administration tries to use smaller amounts of force, more precisely targeted against Al-Qaeda, not other groups. And they think in the Obama administration that the drone strike does this. It doesn't. It's not a light presence. It is a military weapon of war, and when you use it, Pakistanis or Yemenis get angry about it. It's not this precise thing that doesn't really bother people.
And now he's pulling up on the nose, getting ready for takeoff.
A lot of people thought Obama is in power now. He's not such a cowboy as Bush was. He probably won't do such things. But precisely because unmanned systems are so clean and outside our scope and able to hunt down individual terrorists, many Americans think, go ahead, do it, and don't tell us the dirty details. So even a liberal president does it. He probably thinks, this is already a controversial war. I'd better not endanger my pilots and my special forces. What else do I have? Unmanned aerial vehicles. Deploy them. Drones aren't only popular with the army. Police and security services also use them on their own territory to find criminals and combat illegal immigration. A privacy organization from San Francisco is suing the state for this.
So why are you suing the government?
Well, we're suing the government because we're very concerned about the use of drones domestically in the United States. We already know that state and local law enforcement are using drones, but we don't know very much about how or why. Drones have the capability to include all different types of privacy invasive technologies. They're able to use thermal imaging technology to see inside buildings. They're able to use communication intercept technology to listen into our phone calls, location tracking technology to track where we've been, where we're going. For all of these reasons, I think drones are a real privacy concern.
Privacy is an issue in Europe as well. If our air forces buy drones, the police can use them too. In the Netherlands last year, a small drone was deployed just to find an arsonist.
What would your advice to the Dutch be?
So my advice would be to think through these issues, spend a little time before authorizing the government to purchase drones and to just go out and use them. Come up with policies about what type of information can be collected and whether a court order needs to be sought before the information can be collected. where drones could be operated legally. I think all of these are important issues.
In the Netherlands, there are plans to invest funds into drones, but there's almost no debate about the legal or the moral issues surrounding them. Does that surprise you?
There's been very little debate here in the United States, and one of the criticisms is that if a Republican president had done this many drone strikes as Obama did, there would be much more protests from the left. And I think Obama and his administration need to do a better job making the drone strikes public and explaining why they're doing them.
After 7 months in captivity, how did it end?
We were desperate. We thought they would hold us for years, and while our guards were asleep, we used a car tow rope I had found to lower ourselves down the wall of the house where we were being held prisoner, and we walked to a Pakistani military base. We were nearly shot at the base. They thought I was a suicide bomber. I had a beard down to about here, but a moderate Pakistani military officer let me on the base. My Afghan colleague I was kidnapped with brought me to the base. So those two moderate Afghans and Pakistanis saved my life, and that's the reason I'm home today.
At about 30 pounds, the man-portable 310 SUG-V robot is lightweight enough to fit inside a Molly or Alice pack. It's compact and can be taken anywhere. Designed by iRobot and the Boeing Company, the 310 SUG-V performs dismounted operations like surveillance, reconnaissance, EOD, and route clearance missions with ease.
And these robots are advancing. The Air Force, Army, and Navy are all using them more and more regularly. This is a small spying vehicle with 4 cameras and night glasses. And this is a sort of pack mule carrying communication equipment.
What robots are for, in general, are jobs that are dull, dirty, and dangerous.
Chris Anderson is the editor-in-chief of Wired, the popular technology magazine. Every month, it discusses the advance of robots in the military.
In general, keeping boots off the ground, keeping people out of conflict seems like a good thing, by and large. To the extent that that drones, again, keep humans out of harm's way, I think that's probably good.
We're here at Wired's office, but you also have a company. What's that about?
Well, we don't just write about technology, we live with it. We're here in the middle of Silicon Valley, and we can't help but participate. Drones are my passion, robotics is my thing, so I'm doing something about it.
You have a company producing drones?
I do, yeah.
Anderson's company is called DIY Drones. It produces small helicopters with manual and automatic controls, and a recording camera.
The reason unmanned vehicles can be so cheap, and really just a couple $100s at this point, is that it's because of these things. The smartphone revolution has taken sensors and wireless, it has gyroscopes and accelerometers and GPS and radio and all that sort of stuff. So inside your phone is everything you need for an autopilot. I can write an app that'll allow your phone to fly a 747, with the right cable.
The Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich is working on the latest flying robots. They perform complex tasks without any human intervention at all. These drones can build a tower on their own.
Right now, if you want to build a big structure like that, you need scaffolding. But if you use flying vehicles, you don't need scaffolding anymore. So that was really a demonstration of how this technology could be used in ways that people haven't really thought of before.
How intelligent are these creatures?
I would say that they're not very intelligent, as human beings define intelligence. They can't make sophisticated decisions on their own. Most of the time, they have to have been programmed to react in a certain way. And if something unanticipated happens, you may not get the results that you desire.
Drones also learn to dance to music here. Play a game of tennis. perform a task, working together as a trio. And they learn to obey their master.
Are you controlling it with your hand?
I am. We have a commercially available game sensor called the Kinect, which is used to track human motions. So right now it's tracking my hands, my arms, my whole body gesture actually. And then we interface that information to the system, which allows me to then tell the vehicle exactly where to go. And I can even do things like tell it to go up, do a flip, come to me, move it around in general. Many people are doing research with autonomous flying vehicles, and there are many potential applications, including search and rescue. People want to use these vehicles to go into spots that human beings would find it difficult to go into. For example, in disaster areas, perhaps it's radioactive, so you want to send drones to go and monitor the area and provide information that humans can't directly access. People are actually even thinking of using flying vehicles to deliver material across the world in undeveloped areas. And of course, there's the military applications that people think of as well.
The Japanese army developed this flying bull. And the Americans are working on drones that operate in swarms.
How interested is the military in this technology?
They're extremely interested. You know, in the short term, it gives them a leg up on what the opponents can do. So it's just it's a way to get an advantage. But you see, that's the problem with it too, because then it leads to an arms race. They develop this technology, they deploy it, then the opponents, they develop that technology and then deploy it, and then before you know it, we have all of this technology being deployed in warfare, and it just kind of raises the overall level of how technology is used in warfare. And I think that there's a lot of negative effects of having this escalation.
In fact, the arms race has already started. China and Turkey have UAVs, and Iranian President Ahmadinejad recently presented his first drone. It looks like a Thunderbird's rocket, but it hits distant targets with deadly accuracy. Iran also laid hands on this American espionage drone. It crashed or was brought down. Some even say it was hacked. That would explain its gentle landing in Iran. The Iranians are very interested and perfectly capable of copying the technology.
We know right now that about 45 countries are using drones, have their own drone programs. So I think the risk of somebody we don't want to be using drones is pretty high. And we just don't really know that much about the programs right now.
Staan we aan de vooravond van een nieuwe wapenwetloop?
Yes, in this respect too. Future drones will be able to independently search for targets and decide whether or not to attack. The software is being developed in America right now.
I personally think that we should seriously consider putting limitations, self-imposed limitations, on how much autonomy these weapons could have, simply from preventing an escalation.
As artificial intelligence technology becomes better and more accessible, will we have the specter of unmanned drones that fly themselves without even an operator watching over them, that carry missiles and fire them based on their own calculations? It's entirely possible that there will be a continuing escalation of the technology that will raise even more chilling questions.
That's the one place where I would try to keep humans in the loop as long as possible. That's a judgment. I mean, computers are very good at mechanically executing instructions, but judgment, right or wrong, or top priority or low priority, that really is the one place where humans should continue to be in.
Soldiers must always know exactly what they're doing. If you give 90% of that responsibility to an autonomous robot, that's a problem. You need new regulations at the very least. I think ethically and operationally, it's a bad thing. It makes war so remote, it becomes a game, an electronic spectacle. The one thing that should be able to limit war is human logic and human morals. If you overrule that, it will get easier to leave the killing to technology. That's a bad idea.
Om het doden over te laten aan techniek. En dat lijkt me geen goede ontwikkeling.
I see that there's a map of Kabul, so you're actually training for an Afghanistan situation?
A lot of our training scenarios take place in Afghanistan.
And what happens if the US troops pull out?
Then we'll change the scenario.